Imagine this. A company in Brazil buys oil from Saudi Arabia. A government in Africa repays its loans. A businessman in Singapore stores his wealth. What do all these completely different transactions have in common? Not their language, not their culture, not even their politics. They all rely on one currency, the US dollar. Today, nearly 90% of global foreign exchange transactions involve the dollar in some way. Central banks around the world collectively hold trillions of dollars in reserves. But here's the real question. How did one country's currency become the financial backbone of the entire world? The answer begins not with America becoming rich, but with a devastating war that changed everything. For centuries, the world's economy wasn't ruled by the dollar. During the 1800s and early 1900s, the British pound sterling dominated international trade because Britain controlled the world's largest empire and was the leading industrial and naval power. Most major currencies were linked to gold through the gold standard. If a country issued currency, it promised that those notes could be exchanged for a fixed amount of gold. This system created trust and stability. But then came the First World War. European nations borrowed heavily, printed enormous amounts of money, and abandoned the gold standard to finance the war. The Second World War made things even worse. Factories were destroyed, infrastructure collapsed, governments were drowning in debt. Meanwhile, the United States was in a completely different position. Its industries were booming, its cities remained largely untouched by the war, and by 1945, America held around 2/3 of the world's official gold reserves. The balance of global economic power had shifted. But having the world's gold wasn't enough. America still needed the world to trust its currency. And in 1944, one historic meeting made that possible. In July 1944, representatives from 44 Allied nations gathered in a small town called Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. Their mission was simple: prevent another global economic disaster. The solution they created reshaped the global financial system. Instead of every country linking its currency directly to gold, countries would peg their currencies to the US dollar. And the US government promised that foreign governments and central banks could exchange dollars for gold at a fixed price of $35 per ounce. The dollar had effectively become the world's bridge to gold. This gave countries confidence to hold dollars instead of gold itself. Around the same time, two major institutions were created: the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Together, they helped stabilize economies and supported international trade, with the dollar at the center of the system. Over the next 2 decades, global commerce expanded rapidly. More trade meant more dollars. More dollars meant greater trust. And greater trust made the dollar even stronger. It became a self-reinforcing cycle. But then, a serious problem emerged. America had promised the world something it could no longer afford to deliver. During the 1960s, the United States spent heavily on the Vietnam War and domestic social programs. To finance these costs, more dollars entered circulation. Soon, foreign governments realized something troubling. There were far more dollars in the world than the amount of gold America actually possessed. Countries, especially France, began demanding gold in exchange for their dollars. America's gold reserves started shrinking rapidly. Then came the defining moment. On the 15th of August 1971, President Richard Nixon announced that the United States would no longer allow dollars to be exchanged for gold. This decision became known as the Nixon Shock. The Bretton Woods system effectively ended. For the first time, the world's most important currency was backed not by gold, but by confidence. Many economists predicted the dollar would lose its global dominance. Instead, the opposite happened. So why didn't the dollar collapse? The answer wasn't hidden in a vault full of gold. It was hidden beneath the world's most valuable resource. In the 1970s, the United States reached agreements with major oil-producing nations, most notably Saudi Arabia. Oil exports would be priced primarily in US dollars. In return, the United States provided security cooperation and military support. Because every country needed oil, every country now needed dollars. All major oil import countries like Japan, Germany, India, and Brazil needed dollars. Global demand for dollars remained incredibly strong, even without the gold backing. At the same time, US financial markets were the deepest and most liquid in the world. Investors trusted American institutions. Governments purchased US Treasury bonds. Banks used dollars for international lending. Businesses invoiced global trade in dollars. Then dollar had become more than just a currency. It had become the operating system of global finance. Today, the US dollar remains the world's dominant reserve currency. It is widely used in international trade, global banking, and foreign exchange markets. However, some countries are trying to reduce their dependence on it. China is promoting the yuan in cross-border trade. Several nations are experimenting with payments in local currencies. Central banks are also exploring digital currencies. Yet, replacing the dollar is far more difficult than creating another currency. The global financial system depends on trust, stability, deep capital markets, and decades of established infrastructure. Those advantages cannot be replicated overnight. So, the dollar didn't become the world's currency because America simply declared it so. It became the world's currency because history, war, economic strength, international agreements, and global trust aligned at exactly the right moment. And until another currency can offer the same combination of confidence, liquidity, and stability, the dollar's reign is likely to continue. Because sometimes, the most powerful weapon in history isn't an army, it's a currency. Subscribe to Tech Money Decoded for more powerful stories about AI, money, and the future of technology.